Okay, so we are with Dr. Sekou Nkrumah. Sekou, you've been in the news quite a bit.
Yes, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. It appears you've been grabbing the headlines yourself.
I think not intentionally. I think a few things happened. I believe starting with the interview I did with Africa Watch, and then which criticized our president, Professor Mills, and a few other things that I made. And I think also when the discussion came on the national youth policy, I think that also brought some kind of some sort of a misunderstanding, I think.
But would it be unfair to say that somehow you don't really fully understand Ghanaian culture, and maybe you said things in certain ways that you shouldn't have?
That's interesting, because I think one of the board members was trying to make that point. No, I think I've lived in Ghana long enough.
That's true.
Back in '89.
How long have you been in Ghana?
Well, since '89, more or less.
Okay.
So I think that's a long time enough. Of course, I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Egypt as a child. My childhood was spent there. But I returned to Ghana when I was about 11, and came back again from 11 to like 17. Then came back when I was 26.
Okay.
So I think
you've had enough Ghanaian experience.
I think I've lived in Ghana more than anywhere else in the world.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's good to have also an international outlook in a sense. It's good to know different cultures. It makes you richer. Yeah, and broadens your horizon and your mind.
Well, I don't want to get too much into the nitty-gritty of your topical issues. I mean, even before you were appointed as National Coordinator for the Youth Council, we in Africa Talks had always been privileged to have your views. And you know, the issue of youth policy is very, very important for us.
Definitely.
So I want
to talk about the national youth policy.
Well, not even just a policy, but I mean a more broader conversation on youth citizenship, if you don't mind.
Yeah, what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, as I've told you before, I've heard the criticisms of the national youth policy, which you have lying here, as has been launched by the Vice President. Yeah. And in fact, within about an hour, you are going for a program on Ghana Radio, I understand, to discuss it. Okay. But as I have said already, I've just looked through the policy. I've been happy to look through your copy. And I don't think it's really a party political thing. I mean...
No, it is not.
I don't think it's very important. I don't think...
The policy or...
I don't think the policy is very important. I understand your point about an action plan. But actually
which
looking
was
through...
missing from the...
Well, it's not really missing. At the end of the document, they say there's an action plan. I think it's been coordinated by the Youth Council and going to be implemented.
No, but the work had been done on it. So
that's what's implied in this document, I guess.
Yeah, but then we need to see that action plan.
Okay, I'm all for transparency. But my point is, look, only this morning I was listening to a report from one of the CSR institutes, and the good news, the good news was that Ghana has increased its spending on agricultural research by a huge margin. But even in this new margin, about 85% of the public expenditure is just to pay salaries. So I don't really care. I mean, you could have the nicest action plan. As things stand now, I don't really expect a profound
but you see,
rollout of expenditure for the sort of things I suspect you have in mind.
Exactly, but at least it's a starting point, because you see, as you look at it, the priority areas, which are then highlighted in the policy. I think that is where then you need the action plan so they can address those.
So if I understand you correctly, you don't have too much problem with the policy as it is now.
No, I think it's not. It's basically the same policy that
was done
in 2008.
So if I understand correctly, the same party also, I mean, the same kind of policy which the NPP
developed,
was projecting,
and better than.
And you, under your secretaryship of the NYC, you were happy with it.
Yes.
And it's pretty much the same policy that you put before cabinet.
Exactly. Yes.
Your issue now is that the policy has been released without action
plan. Yes. And the action plan, as I said, is beginning. When you look at the priority areas, I mean, you mentioned agriculture. So there's youth in modern agriculture.
Yeah.
That's one of the priority areas. You have employment. You have skill training, education, issues of health, HIV and AIDS. So I mean, there is a broad area of almost, you're looking at all aspects of youth development. But the point
so
is that
my
now,
point is, I mean, this document as
no, it's just a piece of yes.
It's not just a piece of paper, but the point is, it is so anodyne. I don't really see how this policy can be an issue of difference between even the MPP and NDC.
No, it should not have been. But I think the delay is what had created all these doubts and then questions in the minds of a lot of people. But thankfully now we have an action plan. I think we've had one in 99. We've had one in 2008. Now we have this third one. But the point is that now let's get started in addressing those priority areas.
I mean, having read this policy, I still stick with my issue.
No, but as you
that
said,
this whole search for a policy is a gross misspecification of the problem.
No, but there's a budget. The budget was drawn for the action plan. There's a time frame, and then also all the stakeholders will be involved in the programs. So the point is that you need to start from somewhere. For example, even this mention of the sports, recreation, arts, culture. So all these areas, you need to invest in them. Like you see all the youth centers that we have, about 5 of them, they're in a very poor shape, with the exception of
Let me tell you what I think is wrong with this policy, the way I see it. The point is, no matter what the state does, even if the fiscal capacity of the Ghanaian state is increased by 4 times, it will still be a tiny drop in the ocean of what is actually taking place as far as youth development is concerned.
Not necessarily, because the Champon era, I think there was a lot of investment in youth development, and we saw then the establishment.
But actually, I'm sure if we increase US spending about 4 times, we'll be getting around the levels in the Champon era. But what I'm saying is that even
we need real commitment from government. That's the point. But again, you can engage the private sector.
If I might finish. Yes. I mean, having read this policy, this is really a tiny handle on what the government might be able to do in terms of intentional youth development.
I agree, but we need to start from somewhere. Take the example of the National Youth Employment Program that was started during the NPP era and continued by the NDC government. I think the idea is good, but then there are a lot of hiccups there that need to be put right. And I think one of the major problems is that the funding. There's no funding.
But so you made a very difficult move from your father's party, the CPP, to the NDC. And I mean, by definition, you're a young man in the NDC. Don't you think
3 years old.
Your manifesto should have influenced this policy much more than it does now?
Well, what is interesting in the NDC manifesto actually ignored the 2008 youth policy and was rather referring to the 1999 national.
That's understandable. That was their policy.
Exactly. But you see, that is where sometimes we go wrong when we look at things, national issues from
but actually,
the partisan point of view.
The point that I'm making is
the
point that I'm making is that is it not strange that the MPP approach to youth should be so similar to what an the NDC approach to youth should be so similar to what an MPP approach to youth, for instance, like
no, I don't think so, because I think no, I am not surprised that.
I find that surprising.
Honestly, I don't, because the issues are the priority areas. I mean, the issues to be addressed for youth development are basically the same. So I don't see where you can really put the ideological twist.
I go with your point that the NDC now represents ordinary people, as you keep saying.
Well, the left of Ghanaian politics.
The left of Ghanaian politics. So you still think there's
right of Ghanaian politics of the MPP.
A left-right division. And that ideological division should not be reflected in an important area as youth policy?
I think there is a difference, but the issue is then how you are going to approach the policy or the action plan. I think if you are coming from the MPP point of view, then I guess you'll be focused on certain areas in the priority areas. If you are approaching it from the NDC point of view or the left point of view, then I think maybe you'll be more interested in certain areas. But I mean, if it's about unemployment, I think it's a concern to both right and left.
So sorry, go on.
Yeah, so no, there could be some issues, I guess, where the focus, I mean, if you're talking about agriculture, I mean, then is it going to be private, in private hands, that modern agriculture we're talking about, or is it going to be state owned? Okay. So, I mean, I think that's where the approach is different, but I think we all agree that we need to invest in agriculture, and that way is one of the ways of employing our young men and women. But the point is that whether it's state or private, then I think that's where the methods.
Let's talk about the arts. I know your house is a gallery.
Yeah. Interestingly, we don't even have a national a cultural policy yet. Or do we have one? I think recently I heard there was a meeting in Kumasi I'm not sure. It's not been clear because it has.
As I've told you, I'm not a big fan of these policy documents.
Well,
so you go,
fine.
man.
But are you impressed with the way we are developing our culture?
I'm not, but it's not because we don't have a culture policy.
No, it's not because of that. But I'm saying again, when we have something in place, a policy, then maybe that can serve as a guide and inspire the stakeholders. I mean, I think it's a beginning, a humble first step.
So what is sekou nkrumah going to do now? Now that you've been dismissed by your own party?
Yeah, I think the misunderstanding was because of the criticism I had on Professor Mills in that interview with Africa Watch. But I think there was an overreaction from the presidency. I have not been very much impressed with it. But I'm still with the party because, as I said, I mean, the options, what are the alternatives? The CPP or the Nkrumah's front had been weak for so many years now. And I would rather call for a merger of all the left parties, therefore NDC, CPP, PNC, and so on. But I think that will take a while. For now, we are stuck with the MPP and NDC political rivalry, sort of.
You not take the advice of your friend to stand for the MPP in Elenblek?
Oh no, God! I mean, the MPP has a completely different philosophy. I wouldn't be comfortable there. But I mean, I appreciate and respect some of the strong points of the MPP, which I think we're all learning from. I mean, recently expanding the electoral college and so on. I mean, those are the things that I think we're all learning from each other.
Whatever happens, you'll be active in politics.
Yes, I think I've chosen that path some time back. But the thing is that it's a long distance race. So
yes, okay,
and it has its ups and downs.
I suspect the gods of Nzima don't want you captured on Africa Talks.
They always do that. But
again, the lights are failing us terribly.
Yeah.
But I'm very, very happy you have some handle on your views, and good luck with your interview on Radio Ghana.
Thank you.
Thank you.